most respected digital rights organizations in the world. In April of that year, my father, may he rest in power, and I rented a U-Haul and embarked on a cross-country road trip, arriving in San Francisco on May 1st, International Workers' Day, an auspicious day to start a new job that comes with great purpose. Upon arriving at my tiny apartment in the city's Central Mission District, I was immediately struck by the contradictions. This was a city renowned for being the heart of innovation and success, and yet, on my first Saturday morning there, as I strolled down 21st Street to buy a coffee at the legendary coffeehouse Phil's, I watched as a man squatted and defecated right on the sidewalk. Later, I would learn about the city's failure to provide meaningful help to its seemingly ever-growing homeless population, and watch Silicon Valley companies try to step in where the government had failed by creating public composting pooplets for San Francisco. Unsurprisingly, they never materialized. I moved to Berlin just 3 years later, a decision based largely on the fact that, by then, my job was taking me to Europe and the Middle East on too regular a basis for me to stomach the constant 12-hour flights. On trips back to the Bay, I have dodged piles of used needles, watched helplessly as historic bars and hangouts, like the Mission's last lesbian bar, the Lex, closed down, and witnessed as an ever-increasing amount of anti-tech sentiment was spray-painted and chalked on sidewalks and streets. But this book is not about how San Francisco has changed, nor is it about the broader problems with Silicon Valley per se. Those stories have been written, and will continue to be written as time marches on, by people with far more connection to, and stake in, the Bay Area and its future. So allow me to take a step back. As the world burns. As I write this on a calm morning in late May, safely isolated in my Berlin apartment, I'm watching rapt as the Bay Area, as well as Minneapolis, Brooklyn, and much of the United States, goes up in flames. I regularly read the Washington Post and still subscribe to the print edition of the New Yorker. But most of my news comes from people I may or may not have ever met in real life, but who have been part of my network for more than a decade. This news, sometimes in the form of links to published articles, and sometimes direct from the streets, is shared on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit. At 38 years old, and like much of the world's internet users today, I am entirely reliant on media that is shared on corporate platforms. How did this happen? That, dear listener, is precisely the question I hope to answer with this volume. But first, I would like to acknowledge a few things, namely what this book is, what it isn't, and why I'm writing it. This book seeks to encapsulate the history of how Silicon Valley's major communications platforms created a system apart, specifically a system that governs how we can express ourselves online. As the title of this book alludes, this system of governance is encapsulated within a broader system, that of surveillance capitalism, a term popularized by scholar Shoshana Zuboff with her book The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. Essential reading for those seeking greater understanding of how we got here. This volume is not, however, about surveillance capitalism per se. Rather, I see it as the system that has enabled a milieu in which companies, not governments, get to decide how we may express ourselves. The stories in this volume are at times personal, at times observed from afar, but come together to tell a story of how, over the past decade, Silicon Valley's megacorporations have come to align with governmental power, while people in countries around the world, though increasingly divided politically, have come to distrust both corporations and government. My experiences over the past decade have largely taken place outside of the United States, and so too do most of the stories contained within. Those wishing to gain a deeper understanding of the impact social media has had on democracy in the United States